Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. The end of a long week. Lots of hockey. Thank God. We'll discuss that all in a few minutes with Zach, and we have a special guest. We'll announce it when she comes on. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, let's talk about the New York Jets. They hired a new coach, Robert Saleh, who was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Certainly the 49ers have had a really good defense the last 3-4 years. They made it to the Super Bowl with that defense. If they had a little more offense, maybe they'd have won a Super Bowl. Who knows? But the only thing that I say now is I get that he's the opposite of Adam Gase. Sure, everybody is. Nobody would want Adam Gase. But I've seen too many guys come in and talk a great game and get no results. I will use Herm Edwards as the best example of that. When he had his press conference, he talked about this whole story, how he catches all the little details because his dad taught him how to sweep in the corners and make sure you get all the dirt in the corners. And I don't need to hear any more of these things. I don't. So I don't care what Saleh said yesterday. I saw him yesterday. I don't want to know about any of it. If you get LaFleur's brother, great. I don't really care. I only care when I start seeing results on the field. So right now, I don't dislike the hire. I think the hire is probably fine, but it wasn't the guy I wanted, and that's okay. I'm not in charge of the team. But at the end of the day, I want to see results on the field. So, great, you got this guy. Get started. Start showing me something when free agency hits and you have all this money, and don't spend stupid money. That's what the Jet fans want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for you because I know that. I know that you
didn't trade balance on Andrews. That's why I just said that's actually.
Yeah,
I just didn't know if Barnum and Bailey was in town.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate
it. I know that you had a great fear of Doug Peterson being the choice. And, almost anybody getting the job was preferable. But, I don't think this guy – I'm really actually a little surprised because the conventional wisdom was that he was going to be the guy who takes the Lions job because he's from just outside of Detroit, and there was a lot of hubbub about him going to Detroit. So
maybe the Jets paid more for a change.
Now, yeah, and we saw Urban Meyer get the job in Jacksonville, and there's rumors about Lincoln Riley in Philadelphia, and – I don't know where Wade Phillips came in, but there was a report about Wade Phillips coming at the Phil. He
tweeted that he's out of he's retiring. I don't know. He said something weird like, "I'm out of retirement from retirement," and it's like, listen, Wade. I thought he was tweeting because he was happy that the Bills are in the playoffs. I don't think anybody's jumping up and down for Wade Phillips. Here's Julie Stewart-Banks from Fubo TV and Drinks with Banks. Julie, how are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. How are you doing? Sorry that I'm late, by the way.
No. Our pre-show, we were just talking about the Jets coach Robert Saleh. I don't know if you have anything you feel like saying about that because you live in the city now, so you're going to be inundated whether you like it or not.
Well, I've been inundated with it regardless. Really, just the dumpster fire that's been the last couple of years, and trying to. It's sad, right? Because you wanted them also to go 0-16 to be able to get that number one pick. And then it was like when they couldn't even do that, you're like, come on, they can't even lose out entirely to be able to get the first overall pick. But you guys know this. It's like this city, well, it's a basketball city, which has also had been a dumpster fire.
That's more tragic than anything because the Knicks are better this year, but still, not for how long?
They are, I know. But yeah, the Jets, it's a real interesting situation. You almost don't want to be the guy that comes in right now because you have so many things on your checklist to be able to have to figure out. And is Sam Darnold your guy and what you're going to be doing going forward? And so many fractured relationships because of Adam Gase and what does that mean? So they'll be, the WFANs of the world will have plenty to talk about for the many months coming.
Julie, it's funny because I think Jets fans are intent on torturing themselves because the thing I heard yesterday was, well, Urban Meyer is now the coach of Jacksonville, and he may want to draft Fields, who he
He's not going to draft Fields.
I know, Russ, but I'm just saying they're intent on torturing themselves because they're
No, I'm not intent on torturing myself.
Not you. You're smart.
No, hold on. I was 5 years old when they won the Super Bowl. I was a huge Namath fan. And I never, ever saw the team get back to the Super Bowl. I don't want to torture myself. but it just happens.
But you're smart, Russ. I'm saying these other Jet fans who are out there, maybe they'll take Fields and we can still get the guy from Clemson. I mean, come on.
They're morons, that's all.
No, at least they've got like being in the number 2 spot. Like at least they've got some sort of positivity, right? Like that's better than nothing.
The offensive lineman, because at the end of the day, if Sam Darnold's not the guy, the next quarterback's going to need a line too. So they're going to take the offensive lineman.
And Julie, I have my own torture because I'm in Buffalo and the Bills are playing tomorrow night against Baltimore. And I of course they could have played Pittsburgh and trounced Roethlisberger, but because Cleveland beat them, now they have Lamar Jackson to face. It's going to be snowy and slippery, and this guy's going to run for about 500 yards.
And he's never played in the snow.
Yeah. That's your big X factor.
Everybody's played in the snow. Have you not ever played in the snow? Come on, everyone's played in the snow.
He said he's made snowballs before, but he's never actually like run or played in it. So I think let's hope that it's like a huge whiteout there in Buffalo, because then Bills Mafia will just be like insane even more because it's great.
I was a football player growing up, and there's no football player in the world who lives in a place where it does snow that doesn't go out and play football in the snow, because that's just the most fun thing to do in the world. So I have a real hard time believing that.
Yeah, I mean, as a Jet fan, I stopped now rooting for the Bills. I was happy for them. I like Josh Allen. I don't want to see them have success in the playoffs. So now I have to root for the scummy Ravens, which is really bad.
You have to root for the Bills because they're kind of like you. Like, look at them, these scrappy underdogs that have had. There's not a lot to root for in Buffalo. To be excited about in Buffalo, right?
This goes back to 1981.
Sorry, Michael, but it's a tough spot.
This goes back to 1981 at Chase Stadium, watching the Bills in the playoffs. It was the first time the Jets were in the playoffs in a decade. I have a whole story about it. It goes way back there to the Joe Ferguson days. So no. Sorry, no.
All right, let's get started.
We're going to slam you through a table, Russ. Okay.
We got to get to hockey. We got a lot.
Yeah, it'll be on fire, too. I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure. Many more chances to rip Russ and Mike. Feel free to lead anytime. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, January 15th. I got it right. 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I'm dreading the next 24 hours.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are joined today by the lovely and talented and really thanks for being here. And I have to say, my daughter just figured out who the heck you were because I was like Julie Stewart-Binks is coming on, and I grew up coaching a really competitive women's soccer team. My daughter played. She just entered high school. She just entered college last year, so it's over. It's really sad, but for 12 years I coached, and I had women's soccer parties over here, and we remember seeing you in that. She remembered seeing you as a reporter.
I love that. Yes, that's another part of my past and passion. So love covering soccer and also hockey. I'm kind of like the jack of all sports that aren't the biggest ones in America yet, but I love them, and so I'm glad to hear that.
She's a big chirper, though. That's the thing about Binks is she chirps all the time. And she gives away tons of great free content on Instagram, too much, actually.
Yeah.
I give away free content and free advertising. I'm undefeated in free advertising. My show, Drinks with Binks. Like, if you have a drink that you want to be promoted, message me and we will have it on the show. So it's great.
If you've never heard about Drink a Toast, Take a Boost, you haven't heard about the New Jersey sensation. She's
talking for alcoholic stuff.
I know, but this is something we have to talk about.
Oh no, we're open for any drink, drink possible.
Okay.
Not a drinker, but this is worth it. It's illegal in everywhere except Burlington County, New Jersey, because it's so old that it's illegal to make it anywhere else. It's so much caffeine in it, it's ridiculous.
Okay, that seems right up our alley.
There you go.
I attract the ire of everybody north of the border when I tell them that the Caesar is a disgusting drink because it's got Clamato in it. And I'm sorry, I don't drink clam juice for anybody. It's just gross.
When you break it down into clam juice, yes, it sounds disgusting. My boyfriend had one. He did not like it as well.
Of course
he
did.
Think about it as a delicious drink to curb that hangover that you have. It's sort of, it's the hair of the dog, but it also is like a big salty bag of chips. It is perfect. It's a little heavy, I will say. It's not usually my drink of choice, but it's a great hangover drink.
And they take offense if you order a Bloody Mary in Canada. They're like,
yes,
what? And like, yeah, I just like tomato juice.
Well, they cornered the market on Clamato. Nobody else in the world drinks that crap.
Somebody invented it, though. Somebody was like,
Somebody invented it. You know what happened?
Somebody said, this is an idea. They came to like their I don't know, whoever makes V8 or whatever, and says, we're going to do this. We're going to have clam juice and tomato juice together.
I bet you a worker at V8 was one day in their kitchen, drinking their tomato juice for the good company, had clam juice that maybe they were cooking with, spilled it in there, and was just like
the Reese's. This is like the Reese's thing, like you got your chocolate, my peanut butter thing.
Yeah. But then he was probably like, this isn't that good, but we always send our weird chips to Canada. Let's send this to Canada too, and they'll like it.
But the thing is, it doesn't even taste like clam. Like, doesn't smell like fish or clams, or it smells like tomato juice. It just makes you think it's disgusting because it sounds disgusting.
Have a Caesar with your ketchup chips. It's gross.
Still not talking hockey. We got to get on to hockey. We got to steer this ship back for a sec. Okay, this has been fantastic, though. You got your clams and my tomatoes. I love it. Anyway, all right, moving on. So let's talk about last night. And the first 2 nights of hockey, really, because I wrote my X Factors players, because there's some really fun players to watch early in the season that have really kind of shocked me. And I wanted to start in Toronto because I wasn't here on the show yesterday, guys. Thanks for.
So we're going to start with the Leafs. Great.
I want to start with Toronto because I just have one of my X Factor players, because I thought, now, Wayne Simmons, I was not a fan of this signing, really, because I've seen Wayne here in Philly, obviously, and I love Wayne. He's a great guy, and I know what he brings to a locker room, but I just didn't think he had anything left. And I thought that money was a lot. But if he did turn that game around, and if, in my opinion, if that's all he did, because that game was so vital. When you're playing Montreal on opening night, after everything that's happened, after all that's gone down, for Toronto to win that game was so important that he may have just earned his money in that one game.
Wow.
Come on. He's
I'm saying, because I think
definitely that's the exact kind of player that the Leafs did not have last season, have not had in such a long time. Well, they had Kyle Clifford, but really was never played a whole lot. But having a guy like Wayne Simmons, and in the fight with Ben Sherratt, it was like that's what we needed. And I get it. When they signed Wayne Simmons, you're like, really? Like, is this, and when they signed a whole bunch of guys that are kind of like, obviously on the back nine, you're like, oh, come on. Like, what are we doing? But it's like, we need those, sorry, I am a Leafs fan, and I have said it out there.
I knew I liked you, Julie. I knew I liked you.
Need these bottom 6 guys to be tougher. Like, you watch the bubble series, every playoff series, especially even against obviously the Bruins the last couple of years, like they have the same player. The Tavares, the Nylanders, the Marners, and the Matthews, and there was no one else who was able to give them a little bit of grit. And you mention it, that fight and him being able to at least like have some kind of role in the game helped turn it around, because that game that I saw against the Habs, that was not the Leafs that I've seen in the past. Like being down, especially coming back and winning in overtime. That's not what I know, but I'm really glad to see the
Here's thinking about that. You're dead on, because I'm driving. Granted, I was covering the Flyers at the Flyers game, so I'm driving home listening to that turnaround. Like I'm listening on the radio as Simmons gets in the fight, and as I'm listening to that, I love the radio play-by-play guy for the Leafs. By the
Joe
way,
Bowen. He's done boxing.
I think he's one of the best.
Yeah. Joe Bowen is the Leafs as well.
I mean, he makes, because I was just in a building that's empty and we're playing hockey, and he made it sound like he was in the biggest, exciting place in the friggin' world. And I was just in there, and we'll talk about that later too. But but this thing. So anyway, so he's talking about, and he and the color guy who's just very funny.
Jim Ralph, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's just hilarious in my mind, because he hates everything. So I'm listening to this thing and I'm driving back, and this is my perspective. I don't listen to him all the time. And he's like saying the Leafs hadn't had one chance, 2 chances in this entire game. This is ridiculous. This is terrible. What's going on? And then that Simmons fight happens. Everything changes. And I'm listening to it. I'm listening. It's weird to get momentum shift on the radio. But I'm like, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, geez, this is really something. So, I mean, that's something. Then I went back and watched it, and I'm like, yeah, that definitely did shift things.
Well, I wrote yesterday about all the new players that came in and their effect on the game. And, Thornton, I thought played okay, but he didn't. Yeah. He had like one really good scoring chance that he set up Marner for. TJ Brody played 22 minutes. Zach Bogosian, it was more like Eric Bogosian, the actor, was out there the way he was playing. He took 2 stupid penalties. But Simmons, I mean, if he does that, if he picks his chances, he doesn't have to fight every night. He's not going to be that.
He's not going to be able to.
Right. Well, right. But I think from what I saw yesterday, even though he missed a really glorious scoring chance, or 2 days ago,
he did. close.
Well, I think there's something there that at least they're going to get something out of him in terms of offense.
That's the same thing he did at the end of Philly, the same thing he did in New Jersey.
Right.
He's going to miss those scoring chances.
Sure.
His reflexes aren't the same.
Put him on the power play.
Yeah, but that's not what they're expecting him to do then, right? Like, that's the thing. At least if you have these 4 guys that are costing you $40 million, like those are the guys that score. Let Wayne Simmons clean up the dog poop in the back right now.
Yeah. And there's no question, Brand. I mean, I was at, you may have seen it. I was with the it's been televised. The whole like Flyers Penguins outdoor game was the last game Wayne Simmons played for the Flyers, and you've seen there's a version of it you can watch where you just hear the players talking, which is really something. And in that game, you get a chance to see like as that game ends, and the Flyers players realize that's Simmons' last game probably because the trade deadline's coming up. You really get a sense of what Simmons meant. So you really do get. There, I mean, like Claude Giroux hugging the guy at center ice saying, "I love you, man. Whatever happens, I love you." That's just like that's something, that hits you.
And Julie,
that tells you what you're getting, So you are getting that. And Julie's right, and you're right in what you're saying, Julie, in terms of like the aspect of we need these kind of players. I think especially even more so with the younger coach.
And Julie, I think the important thing, and I picked up on this today during the Leafs conference call, the sort of esprit de corps that is being generated with Simmons, Spezza helped last year with Thornton. They're talking. Last year they were all business in these media availabilities with Babcock and then with Sheldon Keefe. This year they're talking about bringing a karaoke machine on the road with them and what songs are going to be sung.
I did not know that. That is like the best news I've heard all day because I feel like I could contribute to that as a karaoke connoisseur. But I like that, right? It's
got a machine right there.
Yep. Yeah, the teams that have they're having fun, and then they're coming together, right, as one another, and then they're not also. It always felt with the Leafs, it was them versus everyone else, right? Like as the city loves them, so many people in the country love them, but it always felt like us versus you. And I think that was, a byproduct of sort of how Mike Babcock ran things. Yes. You bring in Sheldon Keefe, he's finally kind of able to start the season off. I mean, whatever this season is, it's still a half season. Last year took like 10,000 years, including the bubble. Yeah. So we still have this weird sample size. We don't have the fans. Again, like with the fight, right? Like that is such an odd juxtaposition to see because a fight would get everyone going in the stands, and then now you have nothing. Fans, so it is. It's a cool case study this year. But I do as you mentioned, Michael, a different vibe of sort of an identity of maybe what this Leaf team's going for this year.
Well, let me ask, and Aki, you were in the empty building. Russ, you were as well. Yeah. Julie, I don't know if you've been to a game yet, but the thing is, yes, the Simmons fight, there was no fan reaction. There would have been that voluminous noise if when that fight happened. It's weird how momentum changes are going to happen in an empty building. And I heard from some of the reporters last night in Buffalo, the sound, the piped-in sound was so distracting.
It's awful.
Well, I really want to talk about that because Russ was sitting next to me, which means he was 10 feet away from me, but he was over there. And because literally, I'm like, Russ! I had to text Russ.
I don't know. We have masks on. We're trying to talk. I was
texting Russ to talk to Mike, and it was like right there. So so we're watching, and in the first period, the Flyers put in the sound, which honestly, I cannot sleep without this like Brookstone white noise machine that I've had my whole life.
Okay.
And this thing was exactly the same as it, and it was killing me. Like I was like, ugh. I would literally like, I don't know, maybe my ADHD or something like that, but it was very distracting to try to focus on what was going on with this constant sound. It was constant. It wasn't.
I didn't have that problem, but the one thing I'll say that I did notice, and it really picked up, I'm sitting closer in the Penguins end, which says what the Flyers think about me, but that's fine.
I'm even further in the Penguins end. Hey.
Right, you were further. So. But the idea was, I could actually hear how hard a Sidney Crosby pass was.
Yeah, that was
another stick. And really, there's very few guys that could pass with the strength that he does. And, up in a million miles in the sky in the press box, I would miss that. So I did find myself tuning into different things. You tuned into the sleep.
Oh, it's nice to sit down lower for sure. Like that's an amazing.
You tuned into that, but I tuned into other stuff.
Well, the second and third period, they turned it back. Like they turned back the white noise when nothing was happening, which is good because there are moments when people are just talking to each other in the arena and the play is going on. And and the problem with this, that what makes me insane, and I know these teams, I talked to the Flyers already about this, as obviously, so I'm going to tell you what's going on. These teams are stretched budgetarily. They really are. Like they are really like to even hire somebody to do that. Like, and I said, I know it's not that important, but I'm the kind of guy who I've been going to games. My parents had season tickets since I was 3 years old. So I've been going to games forever. I could be in the bathroom until the Flyers took a stupid penalty. Like if I'm not
the groan,
whatever crowd noise I hear, I can tell what that noise is.
Right.
And it's, I mean, that whole thing, we all have it because you've been enough games.
Yeah.
It's really easy to hire somebody with a soundboard and that they have decades of recorded sound that they have.
We keep talking about it. They're not going to do it though.
They've got to figure out, though, it's like if it's a home game for the Flyers or whoever, then, who you're cheering less for the goals against, or you're booing, or how do you sort of have the differences? We were watching the Rangers Islanders game last night, and for whatever reason, when they introduced Jack Johnson, I tweeted about it, but it was like the fake noise was louder for him than it was for other people.
Well, I'm going to tell you why.
I'm going to say about that. I'm sorry.
Maybe his parents were on the soundboard.
If they were real fans of MSG, they'd have been booing him by the middle of the game. Protecting Jack Johnson.
Here's the thing. Okay, so for example, let's take a power play. Penguins are on the power play. Okay, in Philadelphia. Okay, so normally, what would you hear if the Penguins are set up in the Flyer zone? It would be a normal it would be
silent? Yeah,
it would be silent, hushed, and kind of a nervous, geez, they moved closer to the net, they're moving the puck around like that, and then but what you heard when the Penguins set up in the Flyer zone was a increase in the louder, which was I'm like, what? And then when the Flyers would ice the puck when the Penguins, you hear the great
it really affected you much more than me. I will say that.
Turned it down. They turned the sound down when the Flyers iced the freaking puck, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I know that's a little thing, but it's just this is so easy.
You got to have a home fan in charge of the sound noise. Then that's what would be the heartbeat of boo, the calls booing at the refs or a goal waved off or something.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they could go through and take those sound bits and have them ready on a soundboard with someone hit you if a guy checks the guy too hard, checks the Flyer into the boards too hard.
Yeah, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he had all those different coughing noises and stuff. You can just do it that way.
Silence.
And the last thing I'll say about it, and I'm sorry I'm monopolizing this, but Russ knows that I was crazy about this at the game. Is this? I grew up a Flyers fan, and the Flyers chant is "Let's go Flyers!" Dun 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 dun. That's the Flyers chant. Simple. That's the tones. Dun 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 dun. What's the Rangers chant, Russ?
I'm not doing it. They did the Rangers chant.
Da, 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 da,
yeah. Hey.
Right. They didn't do that part. They didn't do that. That came later. That was 2000.
That's the whole song. Yeah, that's the whole song.
Dan, who's our mystery writer, sat next to him.
They
the game. When a Flyers fan tried to start this is before they prompted you with all the the Flyers fans tried to start a Flyers chant going, "Let's go Flyers," and he was booed out of the arena because people knew it was the Rangers chant. I remember this happening as a kid. And so last night when they have this pumped in music, then they bring in the Flyers chant. The Flyers, was pumped in thing, a Rangers chant.
It was odd. The only thing I'll say that was odder was watching Gritty was like watching a sad mime. It was just he had no audience except the people at home and the first responder family. Honestly, those were the only live fans was the first responder family and the media.
Well, first of all, the silence would be perfect at Scotiabank Arena at the beginning of the periods.
That's why. Because a lot of my friends were like, "This is exactly what it sounds like." It's
exactly.
The Platinum Lounge people, they're still drinking. They haven't come back to their seats yet. The Leafs are used to that, and no one really, no real kind of the good fans, the quality fans, aren't there because they can't afford the tickets, right? Or they're up in the nosebleeds. So
now, personally, wait, hold on a second. Personally, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing the Hall & Oates goal song.
Oh my God, you don't.
It's torturous.
It is torturous.
This is the thing that I think people have to. Ak, you were listening to the Leaf radio broadcast, Joe Bowen, on the way back, and how there doesn't seem to be any problem with him not having the crowd reaction. It's because he was in the bubble. At least it was for 5 games, and he knows that there's not going to be a crowd reaction. Rick Jenneret, who I love, who is a Hall of Fame broadcaster, last night, it was his first game in 10 months, and he had no reaction there and probably couldn't see the goal go in. And the play-by-play was off because he wasn't used to it. It's going to take some time to get used to it.
You'll have to get the rhythm. It is hard.
Yeah.
Now, the weirdest thing about the whole thing, Russ, to me, was not the game. The game was it was isolating and odd to be at your own 4x6 table by yourself with people.
I mean, I preferred you not being really next to me, so that was okay.
You could focus on the game at least, not have him just barking around you all the time.
Right, and that is cool, and you don't feel self-conscious about writing down anything or anything like that. But the weirdest thing to me was walking up to the arena and away from the arena after the game.
Yeah.
Is that there you are literally in an empty. It is as if you just went there on a Tuesday at 3:00 in the afternoon, and you're walking. Normally walking up to the arena, there's obviously people everywhere, but to walk up to it with nothing there, I know the Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins are inside this place. I
felt like I was at the Florida Panthers game. I did.
Or more right? I mean, that was strange. That part really kind of hit me harder.
It was weird. I mean,
watching the game. I guess
in the men's room, there were 12 stalls and there's 3 people in there.
I literally, you made friends with the guy in there. I know the guy in there now. So here's the thing about the final thing I'll say. Honestly, I don't think I'll say about it. Gritty. You got to check out the tweet that I put out there on my Twitter because it is. No, I'm
blowing up. It's going viral there.
It is actually going viral, and it is because of this. I was just filming him for a second because there was this thing where he was sitting next to Kevin Hayes. Because this whole thing is an old inside joke that's gone too far with him and Kevin Hayes. So he's sitting
and he's hanging
cut out of Kevin Hayes, and he's rubbing Kevin Hayes' bald cut out head, and then this thing comes up and he starts dancing, and
I love this.
This happened during a commercial break with no fans in the arena, no way he could be on television.
The first responder family,
right?
Yep, that's it.
Video there with him.
That's
I
him.
Can't really see it that well, but he's
Is that hilarious or what? This,
I love that.
Is he a sentient being?
I think Gritty always has an audience in his mind, right? There's always someone watching for Gritty. So whether there's no one there, there's always someone with a camera, right? Or that's just who he is. I don't know who this person is inside of him, but I love him.
I was not a Gritty fan until that moment, until watching that game, because I'm granted they built them I am a God Gritty platform across from us. But
they did.
I honestly think Eck and I know who Gritty is, but we don't know because it's the most guarded secret in Philadelphia. And
I thought I knew who he was, but now I think he's actually.
And I'm pretty sure we have met the person. I would almost guarantee
we have.
And it's you can't tell anyone because then you ruin it. It's Santa's not real now or something. You can't. People will kill you.
Here's an interesting thing. I found out, and this is years ago. It may not be the case anymore. The Sabres mascot is Sabretooth. And I know that about 10 or 12 years ago, Sabretooth was a girl. And that just deflated everybody because everybody thought Sabretooth was a guy. I was what does it matter?
Why did you jump to that conclusion?
No, I know. What do you mean? When did I come? I knew.
Why? We live in a male-dominated world. Of course, he's going to be against the dude.
Right, but why? Why did it have to be Mr. Met's the dude because it's Mr. Met?
What's the first girl mascot? Not who's inside of it, but the actual first girl mascot, the mascot.
I didn't care.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting what you think something is, right? You're it's like reading a book and then imagine, when I first read Harry Potter and imagining what everything looked like, and then you see the movie and you're wait a second, that's not what I thought.
Right. Yeah, there are no girl mascots.
We have Carlton the bear for the Leafs, and that's just he's great, cuddly, but seems kind of a little
generic.
something
that you'd have, and you're we can donate that. I don't need that anymore.
A lot of people feel that way about the Maple Leafs themselves. Yeah, I think that fits pretty well.
All right, so can we talk about real hockey again?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Let's get back. Okay, so the next player, second player on the whole list.
Oh my God!
It
took 20 minutes.
Same game. Alex Romanov. Okay, this kid, Alex Romanov from Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know people were talking. Good Lord, this kid is smooth. Smooth.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in the World Juniors. He was good in the KHL. Well, but again, he's not going to be like a 50-point guy. He's not. But he is a super puck mover. He does everything. He will get his points. But he's not like Shea Weber or anything like that scoring. No. But he's really exciting to watch.
But the smart thing that Mark Bergevin did was he goes out and gets Edmondson. He has veterans there with Petrie and Sherratt and Weber. It's not all on this kid. And in Montreal, they could destroy that kid. If he makes one bad giveaway, all of a sudden, like red light Rasico or you know what I'm saying? It's like they would destroy him. The pressure is not on him. And now as a bottom pairing guy or as a second pairing guy, and he plays 20 minutes and he plays great, everybody's in love with him. It's like PK Subban all over again.
Yeah, he looked good, and listening to Brian Burke praise him as well after the game. Of course, Nick Suzuki also had an incredible game, and Josh Anderson is a mid pickup for them. They looked really good. I was like, man, this Habs team is especially through the first 40 minutes. I think this is going to be an incredible rivalry. I mean, it always has been, but going forward this season, this is going to be really, really difficult. And I remember ahead of time, so many people thinking, or actually on NHL Network, they're like, yeah, picking the Habs to win the division. I'm like, man, the Habs, what? And then I looked at all the acquisitions. I'm like, wait, Corey Perry plays for them now? What?
Yeah.
All these random people, and as you mentioned, Joel Edmondson too, and they do look really, really good. And you have Carey Price, who has also the pads. Just didn't do it for me. Those red pads.
Yeah, I picked the Habs to win the cup, and Mike fake vomited, and Eck was afraid of that. He was afraid of that.
I mean, but I didn't think they were going to be this good either. And I was saying, everybody's like, no, this can't possibly be the case. But,
what I want, Julie, and it hasn't happened since 1979. It almost happened in 1993. It almost happened a few years ago in the first round. I want to see Montreal, Toronto in the playoffs. If in the first or second round,
you don't want to see that. If it's the second round, you're going to lose with Freddie Anderson in there. You don't want to see that.
Yeah, you are. Stop Freddie Anderson. That is the biggest hole on the Leafs, and it's so glaring at this point is Freddie Anderson, and I feel bad because he is such a sweet person, and I covered him with the Anaheim Ducks, but mentally just was crumbled. And we saw even almost he allowed John Gibson to take that starting role from him. He wanted him to have that because there was, he has never won an elimination game. And we saw that in Anaheim. And then the Leafs are like, hey, this is our guy. We're going for him. And then he's always been just sort of like that, just the biggest negative with the team. And so I don't know what you do now, right? His contract's up this season, I believe. So then where are you gonna trade him? And also what you need Jack Campbell, though, will be interesting as a backup because maybe he'll be able to push him in a different way because it's better than what they've had in the past. But it's too bad.
And I'm so happy that someone hates him more than I do. Thanks, French, because I've been ripping Freddie Anderson on the show getting torn up.
I'll say this. And I'm the default Freddie Anderson defender because I think he's been.
This is what I want to say about him. And then
let me finish what I was going to say. I think
send him away after this.
Oh my God!
Jesus, let me talk for a second. I think he's.
Well, you can't defend until I tell you, but go ahead.
He's been victimized by a bad defense for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm. So that is true. The defense had so many holes in the last couple of years.
No, I'm with you, and I honestly, I think he at times when you watch the Leafs, he makes amazing saves. He makes saves that keep them in games. The question is,
I just don't trust him in an elimination game.
Can he win you the game? That's the big thing. He'll
right here.
Yes, and I think that Campbell might help that a little bit because he doesn't. And it's funny because sometimes goalies appear well, they don't want to play all the time because I think he does want to play all the time, but I think he's nervous about not playing and letting the team down by not playing too. And I think that's why they had to go to this crazy thing about he's definitely not going to play on back-to-backs. There's no way. You don't have to think about it, Freddie. Don't worry about it. You're not playing back-to-backs because I feel like in his head he's trying to do too much.
Another mental loophole that he has to get through, right? I mean, there's obviously a lot of sports psychology involved with all these guys, but and playing in Toronto too, adding that is.
Who's your player 3, Ak?
All right, player 3, Joel Farabee. And watching the Flyers, up front there, Farabee was, I thought, just the big thing about what impressed me about Farabee, what I was worried about is because prospect Russ there always tells me that you can't bring a guy in too quickly. You're going to mess him up, and that he's going to. If Farabee came in too quickly last year, so I was looking for that. Like, is he going to fall back? But I'll give you this credit, Russ. I put him on my pool team this week because you said you thought he looked amazing in practice.
Yeah, I said he was going to be a point-a-game player. I'll tell you the difference. The difference, they did rush him. There's no question they rushed him. And for most of that season, until the COVID stoppage, he was surviving. But then he had months off to work out and get his head straight. And when he came back for the playoffs, it was like coming back for another new season. Yeah, and then now with the off season, again, he got stronger. So here's probably the thing the Flyers fans don't want to hear. He is their best puck facilitator on the power play. It's not Claude Giroux. It's not Voracek. It's Joel Farabee. And the Flyers are going to have to come to grips with it. Well, Flyers fans will have to come to grips with that. AV will keep going with that because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody's past. But Flyers fans are going to have to come to grips with that he is their best puck guy on the power play, and it doesn't matter what his age is.
I'm with you.
Let me ask Julie, because Julie, I think you said that you're concentrating on the Islanders-Rangers game last night, and I watched a bit of it myself. And, I didn't think the Rangers were going to be a playoff team this year, but I like the direction that they're going, and Lafreniere and Keandre Miller, and they've got a lot of young guys. But you see the difference between a team that is playoff ready, that had success last year in the Islanders, and a team that is learning how to play. And I think it was really that was the matchup last night, and that's what it showed in the game.
Yeah, but it was even more just like the idea that, okay, the Islanders they know their identity, they have the structure, we've seen what they can do, and they are built so well. But then it wasn't even like the Rangers are a younger team with some new pieces. It was like they weren't even ready to know that the puck dropped at that point. And that this is we've got to connect on passes and not take stupid penalties. I think the officials had some interesting calls last night for different things, but they were so bad last night. The Rangers
they took a goal away from them. Did you think that was a goal, Julie? I thought it was a goal.
I thought it was a goal, yes. And I'm not just saying that because my boyfriend is a massive Rangers fan and I'm just looking at a Panarin jersey that I got him. I understand.
Has your boyfriend bought my Ranger books? Has he bought my Ranger books? If not, he's not a massive fan.
I'm going to ask him. He left me to have the apartment to be able to do my thing right now. So I will have to ask him about that. But it was tough. And because as you mentioned, Keandre Miller coming in and kind of like these new, like they're shifting the lines around. Lafreniere gets his first shift when they're down 2-0. There was nothing that sort of allowed them to build to get into a good spot. But seeing even just them practicing today, what kind of line combinations David Quinn was working with, moving Artemi Panarin to the right side. I think as well, maybe moving. I think D'Angelo is on the taxi squad now, right? So he also had a couple of whatever unsportsmanlike.
He was paired with Jack Johnson, which is horrible.
Jack Johnson had a brutal game too. Yeah. No one should be cheering like they did for him at the beginning. They won't be doing that again, but it's tough. And then Igor Shesterkin, maybe not necessarily
he wasn't
as sharp as you thought he might have been at that point, but it's tough because they're going to have a bit of an uphill climb. You see that they have some good pieces. Cabo Caco being demoted now back, it's they're a real mixed bag. And I think if you're not even ready to just come to the battle of the news stations, you aren't even going to be able to challenge the Islanders that are just see you later.
Two things that hit me. So I go back a long way, Ranger Islander stuff. I grew up on the island. This was the least exciting Ranger Islander game I've seen since maybe the year 2000. It was awful. It was Quinn didn't have him ready. There's no question about that. Jack Johnson should not be in the NHL. He shouldn't be playing for the Rangers. I would put Tarmo Reuin in right now. He's high. He played high in the Finnish leagues, but again, they've got Jack Johnson because Jacques Martin likes him, and they've got to stop doing stuff like that because anyhow, moving on from that, they're rushing Keandre Miller, and you could see it when he's bringing the puck up the ice. He's thinking about it. You could actually see him thinking about it, and it's too big for him right now. This is not a good way to go. Put him in the AHL with Hartford. Let him start that way. This is a bad way to start it off for him.
Now, okay.
You can't do that.
I watched a ton of the Washington Buffalo game, and I don't remember when we were previewing and making our predictions who had Washington finishing out of the playoffs. I think I had them.
I had them finishing out. I had them finishing fourth.
I'll tell you something right now, and it could be first game jitters, but Samsonov was really bad. He was really shaky in that game, and the only thing that saved the Capitals is that the Buffalo Sabres are inept defensively.
Yeah,
I mean, they had Carter Hutton in goal, who couldn't stop a beach ball if his life depended on it. I don't understand why Ralph Kruger starts Carter Hutton over Linus Ullmark. And then today he says, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to start Ullmark or not. Why? Carter Hutton is at best an average goaltender.
No, when you're dead on, Mike. You're dead on right. I mean, I watched a lot of that game too. I mean, Hall looked great. I mean, he looked really on top of his game. He looked amazing. By the way, the Sabres uniforms are just friggin' fantastic.
Yeah, they're great.
They're off the chart.
That was the best thing of the night. Was the
oh yeah, I mean, they're incredible.
That's not too bad then. It's good to hear though that Hall's doing well there, because you kind of feel for the guy. You're like, why is he bouncing around everywhere? Is there something more beyond the fact that he's just not sticking with teams or whatnot? But it's hopefully he's able to just like stay there and figure it out.
I think he might watch. I mean, he just looks more comfortable than he's looked since he was in Edmonton for sure. Like he looks like he's skating taller on the ice. When he skates really well, he's got that Messier.
But there's no pressure. There's absolutely no pressure.
Zero pressure.
Right. Ralph Kruger. He trusts Ralph Kruger, and Kruger is going to keep him on the left wing with Jack Eichel all year. The problem is that you've got a $9 million boat anchor on this roster right now, and Jeff Skinner, who they play on the fourth line. Because he doesn't buy into the two-way philosophy of Ralph Kruger. And with that contract on the books, there's no way they're going to be able to sign Taylor Hall to an extension. So unless they bribe Seattle to take Skinner off their hands in the expansion draft.
I mean, here's what I'll say about Samsonov. He did make a couple of spectacular saves. I did see the one where he was completely covering both posts down in a spread eagle. Like, that's not something every goalie can do. But you got to remember, he had the ATV accident. He didn't play at all in the bubble. He wasn't even in the bubble. So he hasn't played a ton of NHL games. So I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to suck.
No, I know.
What's wild about so many of these teams, like talking with my LA Kings fans, they were like, it's been 309 days since the Kings played a game. And so many of these guys, for COVID precautions, haven't even been able to play in any kind of meaningful games, right? So then you're like last night, even in 2 nights ago in the Leafs 3-on-3 overtime, I was like, man, this looks like me in a regular season game of like my men's league game, where I'm just like already gassed like 20 seconds into a shift. That's what they kind of look like out there, because they haven't played in any real meaningful games. So then you think about these teams, the handful of them that there were, and they've got to be so out of shape. But then you're curious, like the number of games having this long layoff, who's going to get injured? How's that going to work out? Also with COVID too, like bringing this all into it. So speaking with some of the guys at Hockey Central in Canada, they're like, basically the NHL's goal is to just get it off the ground and then adapt like MLB did, which was not great, but they were able to figure it out, and they ended up having a World Series. So luckily NHL at this point is a little bit better than what the NBA is going through. And so one can really hope that
they keep saying, I talk to people at the NHL, they're like, Bill Daly and people like that, you got to try. That's like, that should be the motto of the NHL. Like, you got to give it a shot. You can't not try, have a season and make it work. You got to try. It's just pointless to not do that. 2 players that we met in those 2 games, that Taylor Hall was one of my guys that I thought was a real big X factor. And another in the Rangers game, Barzal, man,
Barzal.
He's there, and we're talking about how he's not playing. He just looked frigging amazing, and that had to be the worst matchup for the Rangers to give the Rangers a little bit of slack. That you're going up against a team that has been together for a while in the Islanders, that plays a system that they know, and they just played in the bubble, and they've really perfected their defensive system. Yeah. And the Rangers have all these new guys in these different positions and different spots. And Lafreniere, throwing him in there is amazing, but is also, they could have used a preseason. They really could have.
That goal that he sniped by Shesterkin. I mean, Shesterkin is still trying to react to it after it's gone by him. I have to say, and this may be a little bit over the top, but you can award the Calder Trophy right friggin' now to Kaprizov. After that,
another one of my guys. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness! I mean, did you see that goal that he scored?
Yeah, I saw all of them.
Not just the goal, which he actually almost kicked in.
I'm not surprised. I mean, that's why I kept trying to tell people. It's like, of course he was going to be the Calder favorite. I tried to tell Eck, but he still thinks it's going to be Sorokin. I don't know why he thought that. The actor will have to play. This guy's been scoring 30 goals a year in the KHL. Was he going to come in the NHL and not score? Like, come on.
No, I mean, the thing that he did that's different than a rookie, because he's not a rookie, really.
Right.
He comes in there and he plays with the confidence of a veteran. So
he's the best KHL import since Panarin.
Reminds me a little bit of like Radulov to a degree too, but like, but Radulov was such a head case. This guy,
he's not a head case.
But the skills and the way they play similar. But I really thought, I mean, the pass he made earlier in the game to Rask to tie it, I think it was maybe to tie it or to bring it within one. That was even nicer than the goal he scored. And the goal he scored was really a beautiful goal, but at the same time, he did kind of mess up with it and he kicked it in. But
I kind of wonder though. I wonder if Chuck Fletcher was watching that game because he never got a chance to see Kaprizov play for the Wild. I kind of wonder if he secretly was watching that game.
Here's kind of wild if somebody be exciting about like that. That's what I'm really happy about. Like,
here's what I wonder. Here's what I wonder, Julie, because I question a number of the moves that Bill Guerin made during the offseason. I didn't like the Stauffer Johansson deal. I didn't particularly like the Cunnin deal to Nashville. But maybe he realized, maybe he knew that he had a superstar on his hands, that he had coming in, on an entry-level deal, and he wanted to assemble like good support players like Bonino and a few others, and he knew that this guy was going to, I think Minnesota is going to make the playoffs now. I don't think I predicted them to make the playoffs, but I think if Kaprizov is for real, and I think he's for real, I think they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I think like kind of to your guys' point, like if a guy is doing well in the KHL, so many people don't follow the KHL, like that are sort of just regular fans. They see a guy come in like this, they're like, how can he possibly be a difference maker? It's his first year. He's, we don't know what to expect. And it's like, yeah, but he's been doing this already. And it's almost, it's a great debate question of whether you think he is a rookie or not. Like, should he be held to the same rookie standards as other guys that are coming up from the CHL or from the AHL?
I personally wouldn't. Yeah.
Right. He's like a free agent essentially in a way of like he's coming from a tier that is more similar. But I think that that's probably got to be Bill Guerin's ideology in terms of that, where like you have this guy coming in, let's see this lightning in a bottle that maybe not everyone is super dialed into. So let's try to comprise what we can with him. This is also, again, maybe because of the nature of the season, maybe people and general managers are thinking of doing things a bit differently while we have this, because you could almost write it off, or you can say, hey, we took advantage of this opportunity of only having, like, you can look at this in different ways, kind of like the bubble, but because you only have, a handful of games, a half of a season, you can sort of write the script that you want in a way that's not a regular season.
No, and you can see, I think that's really plays into it, especially with the taxi squad and stuff like that, and all the different aspects of that play into it. And yet, there's more pressure on some guys to keep their jobs because there's going to be younger guys challenging. Definitely younger guys it's much better for younger guys to play in front of empty buildings than full buildings, I believe, because I really think that they just don't feel that, same kind of pressure. Like Carter Hart in the bubble last year was amazing. And yet, Carter Hart on the road last year in the NHL when they had fans was struggled.
And you have a number of these guys like nipping at their heels that maybe aren't playing with their junior teams yet, right? At this point that maybe they did a good job at World Juniors. Like I haven't fully updated myself on what's going on with all the different junior teams and when they're starting, but it's February, I believe. You guys can help.
I think they fully updated themselves.
It's still in limbo with the W and with the OHL. I personally believe that they're not going to play, but
they may not play at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My next guy is Patrick Lainey.
I wanted to. I was going to predict it was Lainey because I knew it was going to be.
Here comes the love fest.
Yeah, I'll sit back and listen. Go ahead.
I'll hang up and listen. Patrick Lainey is stealth. What, man, he can shoot from wherever, and he has what an incredible shot.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just and when he's on top of his game like he was last night, like that goal he scored in overtime last night, I don't think there's 3 players in the NHL who could score that goal. And the reason I say that is because he fans on the shot. He's 1-on-3, so there's 3 defensemen around him. He's flying down the wing. He looks like he's going to take that typical wing shot. He fans on it. Puck's bouncing around, and then he picks up the bouncing puck and flicks it into the net with like incredible force. That's just at high speeds. That just was like one of those holy cow, this guy's got crazy hands goal.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him more credit for the fight. I think that helped fire him up because I think if he wants to endear himself to his teammates, which I think he's done the opposite of lately, I think fighting like he did was a good thing.
And it's funny that you say that because the way the players react to him, because he's controversial because he wanted to trade or whatever. The players just mob him after he scores a goal. And the weirdest thing I saw last night in the this is aside San Jose game, Evander Kane scores a goal on a breakaway, really nice goal. You really should see it, but the real reason you should see it is like this is the kind of goal that normally a player would be mobbed after, and they just gave him like hand taps. Like it was literally
maybe he owes his teammates money.
There's something
I know.
It was just you could see it. It was something deeper because the players are definitely they're really trying to get excited about goals because they know the fans aren't there and they really want to like keep it going. But yeah, that was a weird thing.
I'm going to send a message though to our buddy Kevin Kurz, who did like a wrap up on NHL Network. Mention John Leonard. You had a rookie come in from NCAA hockey and get 2 assists. I tried to tell Eck when he said that the Sharks didn't do anything in the offseason. I said they picked up John Leonard. That is a pickup that will instantly pay off, and it paid off, Eck.
There's another guy in that game though. That was my that was one of my other guys, my last guy really.
I thought you said that before.
What was that?
I thought you said it was your last guy.
Last guy. Not
You've got an endless list there.
No, Connor Garland. Okay, Connor Garland is probably one of the most underrated players in the NHL right now.
I would agree.
He is, and I don't think a lot of people even know who he is. Like he's on the Coyotes, by the way. If you don't
walk by you wouldn't know.
Yeah. He's small. He's not a big player, but
mom and dad don't know who he is.
But his ability to see the game, to find plays, to stay with the puck, to make passes. He inspires his team. I mean, he literally willed that point out of them last night.
Yeah, he's got great vision and a great shot, and a lot of teams passed on him because he was small. But you know what? They were smart to draft him, and he was good. He's been good all along. But you're right. He just it's on Arizona. Keller gets a lot of the play, and then Kessel because Kessel ended up getting a point yesterday at least. So. Yeah, Garland gets forgotten about.
A lot of things fly under the radar with the Coyotes, it feels like. Yeah. Especially, I mean, even in that division in the West, you're looking at the bigger teams that are going to do more. And then now it's like, then you have the Arizona Coyotes. They're just not necessarily a team that you're like, oh, I have to see, let's get my Coyotes up here and going. No offense to Coyotes fans. It's just like, it's not really on your radar.
Those jerseys were ugly. Oh,
and he almost scored 20 goals last year, and he's in the last year of his contract. He's making under $1 million. So when he's coming up for a big payday, which means the Coyotes will trade him.
They'll trade him.
Somebody's going to add a real serious player there. Like that's a guy that
he's a power play guy too. Like people.
I know. I'm a GM. I'm looking at him like I'd rather have him than Clayton Keller right now. And
all right. Let's a hard stop on
let me take over here for a second, okay? Because I was the only one, Julie, when we were predicting the North Division that said the Edmonton Oilers were going to miss the playoffs. And the 2 games against Vancouver are the perfect example of why. Because again, in the first game against Vancouver, they were defensively incompetent, and Mikko Koskinen was a sieve. In this game last night, they won. How did they win? Connor McDavid with a hat trick, Draisaitl with 4 assists, and they covered up their defensive mistakes. They can't do that every night.
Yeah, they can't do that every game. And they rely on Draisaitl for so much more than scoring and just being able to be a big body on a penalty kill. And he's such an incredible player. But yeah, I don't think I would pick them to miss the playoffs. I just think that I picked them to underwhelm again. But the North is so odd, right? I mean, everyone has got a shot, I feel like, in the North, other than Ottawa. Nope. But everyone else, there's a chance. Same with the East. My God.
Yeah.
Well, I think New Jersey. And Buffalo are on the outside looking in, guaranteed. But
something about the game though. On the one goal where McDavid scored on the he went around 3 guys, scored on the wrist shot. I think Thatcher Demko actually thought he had that lined up.
Yes.
And when McDavid shot it, that could have gone through the back of the net. He had so much on that shot. It was ridiculous.
He did to the defenseman on Connor McDavid's break.
They were almost watching it.
I think it was Hamonic.
It wasn't Hamonic. It was the other older guy, though. I had written down.
Edler? Was it Edler?
It was. And so David looked like he's going to do his typical, I'm going to go around you just like you're standing still thing. So and then stopped on the dime and cut back in, and the defenseman was just like, yeah, where are you? Kind of play.
This is when you want it to be like 70s hockey, because like Larry Robinson would have just tripped him. He wouldn't have cared.
So I got to ask you guys, we've heard everyone sort of anoint Colorado Avalanche as like, oh, this is the team, da-da-da-da-da. We know Sammy plays 2 games. That doesn't really matter. But are you buying that? Or are they over-anointed? Or is it too much too soon?
No, I think they'll make it to the Cup, because I also think if they are a little shaky in that, they'll make a trade at the deadline. I thought they were going to do it last year, but I think they'll do it this year. There's a lot of goalies out there, and I think that – so all they have to do is be in the mix, and they'll be in the mix, and I think they'll be able to get better after that.
Julie, I love their forwards. They're incredible. I love their young defense. They're not even missing Eric Johnson right now. They've got Makar, they've got Byram, they've got
Byram's on the taxi squad. They're not even using him.
Right, but I think eventually they're going to use him, Russ. I mean,
I don't know. Timmins came in like a player, so maybe not. I don't know.
But Grubauer and Francouz are not Stanley Cup winning goaltenders. I think they are going to have to, before the deadline, find a team that is out of it, that they will trade a number 1 goaltender and get that guy. And if they do, then I think they're cup contenders. If they don't, I think they're going to lose to Dallas, whoever is the Dallas.
I think they will get somebody. I think there'll be somebody.
The reason I don't think they are there is because I never once lived through an NHL season when everybody picks somebody so much and it happens. Like this, whenever someone if we know hockey at all, like this is the way hockey
Tampa,
works. Like
people, 2 years ago, Tampa, obviously that didn't work out, but last year Tampa worked out.
Yeah, right. It's not eventually for Colorado, but it's just like I think people are jumping a little too soon, and I think
that a weird year. It's almost impossible to predict anyhow with the 56-game season. With the injuries, it's going to be so hard to predict. So I think, you know what? It was easy to fall back for someone like me on the Avalanche because they have so much depth. That was really the reason.
Just a minute. It was lazy to fall back on them.
It wasn't. I think
honestly, it felt like we had both the Canadian and U.S. feeds going here, and because that's what we had to do to be able to see these, and it was like everyone's just like, oh, okay, Colorado, there you go. I'm like, man, I hate this already. Like, I don't want to anoint a team. I hate that so much, but I do love seeing I love seeing Tampa win last year because I felt as though they deserved it. And talking with John Cooper, it was so interesting. You guys talked about how weird it was not being able to hear being able to hear everything, I guess, and there's no fans. Like that's what John said. Like when he realized they had won the Stanley Cup, like you could hear the announcers like calling it basically, and just we watched it. It was silent, and you just hear the guys like that pure sound of winning like a trophy from these guys. And so I like hearing. I like that they won. I think they will make some noise still again, but it's still such an odd season as we've all mentioned.
I think Markstrom looked fabulous for Calgary. I mean, we got
Randy in our chat room is a Calgary fan. He thinks the Flames already suck. They don't suck.
They don't suck. Will you stop?
They don't. That was a really hell of a game by Winnipeg. They took it to overtime. It was like. The Jets had everything going.
You are facing Hellebuck. Like, come on.
They've got a great goaltender.
They do, and
Calgary have great goaltenders. Yeah,
this is the
thing that sort of makes me sick about this season. I'm all for them playing, as many games as they could, 56. But I thought that they would expand the playoffs this year, and you're going to have, especially in the North and in the East, you're going to have 2 or 3 teams that should be playoff teams that aren't going to be because they only went 16 instead of 20.
So actually, I've got breaking news. It looks like this is really weird, but Kevin Rooney's already hurt for the Rangers, and one of the big
Rooney, I want my daughter downstairs in 10 minutes.
If they thought he was going to replace Jesper Fast on the PK, yesterday was obvious that he wasn't. But I heard the Rangers are going to sign Sergei Nemchinov for the PK. So
there you go.
Rooney's already injured, man. We were doing Ferris Bueller stay up quotes last night every time Rooney touched the puck. So That's how the Rangers game went in this household. Watching it.
That had to be a rough game to watch as an opener for the Rangers.
Oh yeah.
They'll be fine. They needed a preseason. That's my whole. I'll say about the Rangers. They needed a preseason. They're going to be better than that.
They'll be better than that.
They're the worst. They play maybe the best team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, honestly, the Islanders are really that good.
No, the Islanders are going to win the division. The
Islanders could win the cup, right? Like,
yeah, they could.
So it's like you play. That was just the worst combination of things. You wish it wasn't at home, but who cares? No one was there anyway. But honestly, it's just like, it was weird that it was in Madison Square Garden. But yes,
I think the only one that wished it wasn't at home was Alexei Lafreniere, because he did feel that MSG pressure a little bit, but he'll get over it.
And the last thing I'll say on the whole show, because we do have to get going, but it was this, and the NHL. There's something the NHL has to fix, and I don't know if anyone else has recognized this, and it's the kind of thing that I recognize. Maybe makes people crazy.
What do you mean, your hat?
Because now you won't be able to recognize it.
Oh, no, not that.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Did you get a bowl of soup with it?
Yeah. Go ahead. All right. No, it was the friggin' nets in the NHL are too tightly strung. Are you watching?
I did not notice that. I'll be honest.
No, really didn't notice that.
How many? It's like a pitchback. It's like ridiculous. Like you're watching. Yeah, it's there. I mean, now I know I'm old, but I remember when you said the middle thing in the middle, even. But that's a long time ago. But the nets, at least, a shot would go in, and you would know it was in because it would land in.
Oh, okay. So you don't like it that the net doesn't sway when a goal goes.
It doesn't like scoop it in.
It comes out so freaking fast.
Well, in
the net. It doesn't even land in the goal.
You know why they did that, Ek? Because
I know why.
Because the net was so loose that players, when they were skating around the net, would get caught on the net.
Correct.
But there was ways to fix
that in like 1932. Like I feel like that.
Yes, but no. I'm just. There's something to the feeling of a goal. There's something to the view of a goal when a puck hits the net.
Great.
And just lands in the goal, and you see it's over the goal line, and it's a goal.
Julie,
was that when you used to turn around and see the puck go in on you? Was that what you like to see?
They changed the design of the net. If you remember back in like the late 70s, early 80s, the net had like this metal thing in the middle that was protruding. And one night, Gilbert Perreault got tripped in Washington, and he basically it impaled his ass on this metal thing that came out. And after they changed the design of the net, so they that thing.
How do I YouTube that if I want to see that, Mike? What do I have to put in?
Gilbert Perreault ass.
One NHL.
I might have said that at MSG a few times when I was younger.
It's just like, it's like, I mean, I'm trying to bring one up real fast, a picture of the old nets, but I don't need the middle thing back. I'm okay with the middle.
No, but now it hits the camera a lot of times and it comes out. You're not even sure it's scored.
Those are like, if you're shooting the puck and it hits the camera, you got to feel pretty good watching that replay afterwards. You're just like,
that's cool. But the puck needs and this happens every NHL season, by the way, because this is something I recognize way too much. But in every NHL season, they get looser as they go along. Like it literally is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you watch
for the Ottawa Senators, you got that net is loose. I'm sure. Just by the end, just dragging on the ice, tripping guys.
Let me bring up one thing before we end the show, because it's raised a little bit of ire online. Greg Wyshynski commented yesterday about Peter. First of all, Peter DeBoer in Vegas playing 5 defensemen and 13 forwards in his first game is just bizarre. But then apparently DeBoer will not announce the starting goaltender until just before game time, which, if you think about it, the NHL is in bed with FanDuel and a number of gambling sites. This affects, like, if you want to bet on the Vegas Golden Knights, you may not want to bet if Robin Leonard's in goal, or you may not want to bet if Fleury's in goal, and DeBoer is not releasing it until 6:30 for a 7:00 start. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, when you put it from a betting perspective, 100% it would make people not want to bet on that game because of too many variables. But I think he may be just doing it to all the media narcs and nerds out there to mess with them, because coaches do that. And coaches love to do that because they hate the media. Yeah. So that's where I would see that coming from. And also, competitive advantage. It's still a goaltender. Like, the other team knows the strengths and weaknesses of both of them, right, at this point, so it's not really that big of a deal. But
yeah, I mean, if it was Buffalo and they announced Carter Hutton, then I would definitely bet on the other team.
Yeah,
it changes
the line, that's for sure. Changes the line.
You try Peter. Tell Peter DeVore that he's not allowed to do this because of the betting. Like it's not going to work.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Peter.
No, he doesn't care. But the
Betting does say it. Like, hey, you're hurting like a whole industry we're trying to get going.
I still don't care. I don't think
you'd
have to change the rule.
What the NHL may do is they may say, okay, your game starts at 7:00 by noon of the whatever noon Eastern time or noon Central time. You have to have your lineup in. So that might be what they end up doing.
But things change all the time, So I mean, I don't know. To me, that's like I have a tough time with that. I don't. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think it'll
like gamesmanship or like, do they have to allow that? Like, are we now then appeasing? Like the odds makers instead of the game,
right?
Then it's like
that's why I don't think it'll happen.
Exactly. I have the net here. Ready, guys? All right, here we go. All right. Let me show you this because I'm going to show you this really kind of. So this is like I found a history of nets pages, and this seems like ridiculously old because it's in black and white. But here is what the net used to look like, and
there's that.
You literally remember this, right? You had the middle netting here, and this big I don't know what to call it. Number three type bottom.
Like the net that was in Gary Bettman's backyard when during COVID when he was doing videos back there. Remember that?
It was called the Art Ross hockey net, but there's a whole.
I didn't realize that either.
Netting, but yeah, the nets now are just ridiculous. Nets are much more like this now, which is like like the original. And to me, that's a problem.
That'd be so dangerous with that little jutting out thing.
Like I said, Perro found out the hard way.
But it was really because when a shot came over here in this area, now it's like bing bing out, right? Then it would, but back then it would rip around, it would hit the middle thing and die in here. I'm just saying that was fun.
But that's what they have cameras for.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time.
Evidently, it was just 1927 on that.
No, 1927 into the 80s.
When the Leafs last won a cup.
Yes, exactly.
Into the 80s. All right. That's all the time we have. Julie,
really, let Julie plug the show and what the time and how to find it.
What was that?
Thank you guys for having me on. It was good to talk hockey. I haven't had a chance to talk hockey in a really long time, so I'm sharpening my elbows again because I've had to inundate myself with all the other sports in America. Usually it was just as how I met Russ back in the good old days was prospects on CHL content. And I still do have an affinity for all that stuff, but more so like what I went through when I see, Strome and Cizikas. And it's like, oh, I remember covering Mississauga St. Michael's Majors and the Niagara Ice Dogs, like feels like 100 years ago. And and one small anecdote, it's so odd seeing like Braden Point do so well with Tampa. And I'm like, I remember his first practice with the Moose Jaw Warriors when he was a 15-year-old and they brought him in. I'm like, wow. Man, I forgot how old I am these days, and I don't even feel old. But you're like, wow, that was a long time ago, back in the old Regina time of my life.
Julie, please promote what you're doing right now.
What's going on now?
Yeah, so I'm basically doing what you guys are doing, but I talk to people about. I interview athletes, entertainers, media people over a drink of their choice on my show, Drinks with Thanks, which is very awesome. It is pandemic proof, and we've learned that we can actually, silver lining. I've been able to do my show from quarantine in Toronto and quarantine in New York and my bedroom in Toronto because I went home to see my family. And so, yeah, it's just been good. We've had on Will Blackman, played in the NFL Super Bowl champion for the Giants, now turned wine guy. So we sipped on some wine. We had Eric LeGrand on. He has a new coffee venture. It doesn't have to be a drink specific show, but this week's was. So it's been a lot of fun to just continue having a job.
Yeah, one comment about the show. When you were in your Toronto bedroom, that little Hall of Fame of trophies is creepy.
Amazing. I don't know. Do you guys not save all of your ribbons from your track and field meets when you were in grade school? I mean, I definitely did.
I've got my 2 bowling trophies in the corner over here.
Nice. Well, now here I have a real trophy from a telly I won.
There
so no big deal. But yes, my figure skating medals are all over that. But yeah, that's what I'm doing with Fubo TV. We're working on a lot of cool stuff. Fubo's like a new place for a lot of content, doing a lot of betting, whatever it is. So yeah, again, just trying to keep paying my rent and continue staying alive. So that's just the two things we're working on these days.
Here's the show. Again, Drinks with Dinks on the FUBO Sports Network. Yeah, so
there's me.
Definitely check it out.
Oh yeah, we had Edzo on. He was great. He also picked Colorado. He picked Colorado. I learned that on Veep. Colorado and Carolina, and then Calgary as his dark horse.
Okay.
Nice. Excellent. Well, can't wait to check it out. And thank you so much again for coming on. We have to have you on again. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it, guys. Good luck with the hockey season. Have fun with being the only fans or not fans media.
Yeah, play for us. It's just for Russ and I,
That's Finally got what you wanted.
It did. It's really kind of a bizarre dream, it's like, holy cow, like here we are.
5 months of Zoom calls. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, the Zoom calls are the greatest. But besides that, we'll deal with it. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will be back again tomorrow.
No, we'll be back on Monday.
We'll be back again on Monday.